I mean, it feels like a physical game every game. Feels like it's been a physical season. But yes, I think, I feel like I've been on the ground a little bit more this series so far. But we just keep getting back up, so that's all you can really say.
Caitlin Clark enters Game 3 of the WNBA semifinals with fire in her eyes and a chip on her shoulder. The Indiana Fever didn't just lose Game 2. They had it snatched away. This wasn't about being outplayed, and it sure wasn't about talent. No, the real story was the officiating. 41 fouls in total, 16 in a single quarter, and bodies crashing to the floor on nearly every possession. Yet somehow, the narrative crowned A'ja Wilson the hero while Lexie Hull fought through a painful back injury that leaves her questionable for Game 3. Absorbing contact no athlete should be forced to endure. If this is what the league calls playoff basketball, then the WNBA has a serious credibility problem on its hands. Fever fans, if you're ready to roar into Game 3, drop a "Let's Go Fever" in the comments.
Until the third quarter goes down. At least they called this one. A'ja Wilson creams Lexie Hull like she did 5 times in Game 1. Peggy Hammock get 15 calls in a row and one goes another way and she starts screaming and crying. A'ja Wilson doesn't like Lexie Hull. She's always pushing her, but that's an illegal screen, and then Lexie Hull gets called for a foul.
What makes the whole situation even harder to swallow is that Indiana has already shown they can rise above the chaos. Just look back at Game 1. That wasn't simply a win, it was a declaration. The Fever marched into Las Vegas's fortress, home of the reigning 2-time champs, and dismantled them with poise and precision. Kelsey Mitchell came out blazing, dropping 34 points in the performance of her career, proving she could shine on the biggest stage against the league's elite. Indiana dictated the pace, swung the ball with purpose, and smothered the Aces' attempts to turn the game into a track meet. It was calm, composed, disciplined basketball, and it worked to perfection. Then came the Wilson factor. On the very night she was crowned MVP, A'ja Wilson delivered one of her ugliest shooting outings of the season, going 6-4, 22 in a performance that looked more Angel Reese than MVP. Indiana swarmed her, cut off her comfort zones, and forced her into shots she didn't want. She had no answers. And here's the kicker. The Fever did all of this while keeping fouls to a minimum, something nearly unthinkable inside Las Vegas's own building. The result? A 16-point beatdown that sent shockwaves across the league. That was Indiana's message loud and clear. They weren't just guests at the table. They came to take the feast.
A'ja Wilson's just a big bully. Look at this. Throws Lexie Hull on the ground. Everything she does is illegal. Look at this one. A moving screen and then pushes Lexie Hull. Do you think they ever call a foul on A'ja Wilson?
But even in that Game 1 masterpiece, the cracks were already showing. The whistle leaned heavily toward Las Vegas, the foul count lopsided from the start. Indiana's dominance masked the imbalance, burying the controversy beneath the final score. Still, anyone paying close attention could feel the storm brewing. The Aces had been humbled, the league's golden franchise bloodied on their own floor, and everyone knew payback was coming.
A'ja Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces lose Game 1 on their home court to the Indiana Fever, 89-73. The Indiana Fever were in control of this game from start to finish.
Then came Game 2. The Aces weren't just out to even the series. They wanted to send a statement of their own. The only question was how far they'd be willing to go to wrestle momentum back. The answer? About as ugly as playoff basketball can get.
WNBA, you cannot blindside somebody and set a screen on them without enough time for letting the player being screened react. And then look at this. This one, their arms lock up, but you gotta let go at some point. Like, you can't bring the person closer to you and just stay locked in while the offensive player is trying to get the rebound. But we know A'ja Wilson only receives foul.
From the opening tip, Las Vegas ditched finesse for brute force. Forearms, shoulders, bodies colliding on nearly every possession. The officials shrugged it off, hiding behind the excuse of playoff physicality. But when the box score shows 41 fouls in a game, with 16 crammed into a single quarter, that's not toughness. It's outright chaos. Through it all, the Fever kept searching for rhythm, fighting to play basketball in the middle of a brawl.
Steph, why don't you think you were able to find any flow? And when that was the case, what are you trying to do to jumpstart things, maybe on the defense?
Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. And when they're at the free throw line, we can't get up and down the floor. And that's a challenge. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively, and we didn't counter that with our off-ball actions or with our back cuts. So they took us out of our comfort zone. I mean, offense is about rhythm, it's about timing, it's about spacing. We allowed them to do that, and they kept us.
Every possession turned into fragments, chopped apart before it could take shape. A team built on pace and rhythm was dragged into sluggish half-court scraps, the exact opposite of its identity. While Indiana fought through stop-and-go basketball, Las Vegas feasted at the free throw line.
Yeah, Lexie, obviously you were a late add to the injury report today. Just how are you feeling this morning with your back, and what do you have to do to be able to play?
I mean, I'm feeling sore still, but I think just a lot of treatment, trying to get, our bodies as ready as we can be. Part of playoffs, I think, for everyone is it's the end of the season. Everyone's a little fatigued, everyone's a little sore. So just trying to go out there and do the best I can. A lot of treatment with our trainers. I'm really thankful for them to spend a lot of time with me today, a lot of time with me yesterday, getting me ready for it.
No player embodied the fight more than Lexie Hull. Truthfully, she shouldn't have even been on the floor. Her back was already compromised from Game 1, an injury that would have sidelined most players. But Hull laced up, stepped out, and refused to back down. The Aces noticed, and they went straight at her. Every cut, every rotation, every box out came with extra contact and not-so-subtle shoves. She hit the hardwood more times than anyone should in a single game, yet she never broke. Instead, she drifted to the arc and answered with 5 three-pointers. Tying the Fever's playoff record, that it wasn't pretty. It wasn't clean. It was pure defiance. Afterward, she admitted she was sore and needing constant treatment, but still pushing forward. That's not just a post-game soundbite. That's the very definition of grit.
This is what happened. They cut it to 8 and they get 4 fouls in a row. That was not a foul. That was not a foul. This is crazy. 4 consecutive fouls. So from 8 quick, and the rest was history. It looks like Howard got hit in the arm by 2 players. They don't call it foul. It was a shot clock. But the rest of the game were just a whole bunch of fouls being called, people flying.
Still, the headlines crowned Wilson. 25 points, 9 rebounds, 5 steals, 2 blocks, a box score built to impress. But the numbers leave out the truth. Wilson didn't seize control with craft alone. She lowered her shoulder, bulldozed her way into the paint, and drew whistles Indiana never saw on their side of the floor. Fans watching weren't fooled. They knew exactly how slanted this game was.
I mean, it's how you look at it. It looks, honestly, by some of the fouls and the way it was going, it looks like we were almost too physical, but yet at the same time, I feel like we have to be able to get that on the other end. I think, sometimes when you just look at the game as a whole, and you look at the way that it works, sometimes you manipulate it to different ways, and you have smaller matchups. So, I mean, I just don't think it's really possible all the time for some of those smaller matchups to really do such a clean job of that. But hey, I'm here to hoop, so none of my business.
Aaliyah Boston felt that tilt more than anyone. 13 rebounds and 10 points read solid on the stat sheet, but the box score doesn't capture the pounding she endured. Constant elbows, shoves, and whistles swallowed. Every rebound was a fistfight. Every shot attempt met more body than ball. In just her 3rd year, she was treated like a crash test dummy. And instead of breaking, she kept competing. Her numbers may look steady, but the truth is they were carved out in survival mode from start to finish.
Kept her out of that space as much as she would have wanted to. She did end up with 19 points.
7-0. Aces run has been stopped. Sims.
Odyssey Sims earned her respect that night. She dropped 18 points while dribbling through double teams, taking hits, and manufacturing offense out of broken possessions. Every time she started to find a rhythm, the whistle cut it short. Every time Indiana built momentum, another foul reset the game. Sims' baskets weren't just points on the board. They were acts of defiance, little rebellions against a game that seemed determined to cage the Fever.
Rosell on Young. Sims over. Asia Wilson, she had to put some extra arc on.
That was the tragedy of Game 2. The Fever weren't beaten. They were dragged into a mud fight they never agreed to play. Their resilience shone through in flashes. Hull's threes, Boston's battles on the glass, Sims' fearless drives. But every spark was smothered by whistles and brute force. The Aces didn't expose Indiana's weaknesses. They leaned on foul-heavy chaos, and the referees let it ride. And that raises the real question. If Las Vegas needed both the whistle and physical excess just to scrape out a home win, what happens when the series shifts to Indiana? What happens when the Fever return to Gainbridge Fieldhouse, fueled by a crowd seething over how Game 2 unraveled? Let's be honest, this wasn't a showcase of the Aces' greatness.